Can I just check that people joining online can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For those joining online, can I just check if you've been able to hear the meeting from the beginning?
No, only now.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start from the top then for the benefit of those online. So we'll start with apologies for absence and substitutions. I've been notified that Councillor Connie Hirsch will be replacing Councillor Gary Busuttil this evening. I've had no other notification of substitutions or absence. We'll move on to urgent matters, for which it was noted there were none. Declarations of interest, there were none.
No.
Matters to be considered in private, there are none. Minutes. The meeting on the 24th of July 2025 can we approve as a correct record of the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of July as a correct record. Emily?
Thank you. I'm not sure if Suresh is able to provide any further information, but Suresh and I have had a conversation offline in that page 14 of the minutes refer to work that needed to be undertaken in relation to the previously disclaimed accounts. That talked about undertaking that work to give an unqualified opinion in 24-25. Having reviewed the discussion, that work will be required to provide an unqualified opinion. What Suresh didn't do was commit to doing that in 24-25, in which case the opinion in 24-25 may be either disclaimed or qualified, but not unqualified in 24-25. And that work will need to be done, but those opinions will come later. So we do need to correct the minutes to reflect that. Suresh, I don't know if you had any sort of particular proposal on the correction to the minutes, or whether there was anything else you wanted just to pick up or clarify.
No, I think you covered, Emily, the email exchange, and the YouTube video proved the point.
Thank you both. That has been noted as an amendment to the minutes. Thank you. That moves us on to item 6, Treasury Management Update for Q1. I believe that's you, Bridget. Over to you.
Hello, yes. This is the Treasury Management Update report. As usual, all borrowing and investments activities were undertaking in full compliance with the Council's approved limits and strategy. At the end of the quarter, the Council held 439.6 million in investments, of which 306.8 million was placed with the Government's Debt Management Office. Average investment returns were about 4.2%. Borrowing and long-term debt increased marginally by 0.275 million, but that's because Mortlake, who invest with the Council and that's treated as debt, increased the money that they were holding with the Council. And overall, the Council's capital financing requirement remained at 1.19 billion, and we're inside of that. Our borrowing is inside of the capital financing requirement. In terms of the wider economic backdrop, interest rates were dropped from 4.5 to 4.25% in May. Inflation rose, so we haven't seen any further increases. Unemployment edged up slightly in the UK. And all investment activities, I can conclude, were made with approved counterparties and within the limits that have been approved. Otherwise, I have no further updates, unless you've got any questions. That's my update.
Thank you, Bridget. Are there any questions? Alan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, relatively short time ago that we last received a report, of course, so not much to say. The new thing, I guess, is the move into money market funds, and take the point made in the report about the need to diversify away from UK holdings, but it'd be useful to understand sort of why now is the right time to invest in money market funds again. Yeah.
Yep. Did you want me to answer, or were you still asking?
I have a second question, which is very different. So if it makes sense to answer the first one,
okay,
and I'll come on to the second one.
Right. Just to clarify, we've been using money market funds for quite some time now, so it's not a new decision. Maybe for the benefit of other members on the group, I would just say that money market funds, they're sort of AAA rated and regulated diversified cash funds that invest in very short dated, high quality instruments, such as treasury bills, government repos, top tier bank paper. And basically, they aim to give us same day access to our funds with very short duration and for good interest rates. We have been investing in money market funds for a long time. It might be that at the last meeting, there might not have been an exposure to money market funds, but it is something that we do largely because it provides us security with AA rated, liquidity same day and quite good rates. And after the global financial crisis, there were sort of regulatory changes made to money market funds and how they're managed. So the one that we're invested in is either CNAV or low volatility NAV money market funds, which are the safest, more regulated, and the unit price remains at £1, so that we're not losing on the capital invested. And we try to invest with holding parents that will support those money market funds if there's time of market crisis. So it's something that we've been doing, and that is our only exposure to foreign banks, because obviously those money market funds do have exposure to foreign investments, so it's not new.
Thank you, Bridget. Emma, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to come in. I don't know if you're referring to actually what we have done is the resumption of the investments in local authorities.
Okay.
So it may well be that's being alluded to. So just to let the committee know that in consultation, so the strategic resources in consultation with the portfolio holder for inclusive economy, we've approved the resumption of the investments with local authorities. We have built a robust process to make sure that we're doing checks on the local authorities before any investment is made. So you will be able to, I think we will start seeing that within the Q3 report that will come here. You will start seeing that diversification. And Alan, off the back of your question about the sort of diversification or reasons for this one in particular, it's actually we were getting offered quite good rates with local authorities, and the money is secure, and so we have got some parameters that we're going to work within, so within 12 months, and certain local authorities. However, they are offering good rates, so on that basis, we put that proposal out there and it's been accepted, and so Q3 should start seeing some local authority investments as well.
Thank you, Emma. Alan, did you have another question?
Thank you. Yeah, and that's clear. So essentially, I think on the last 2 quarter dates, we happened not to have any money market funds. I think that was what prompted my question. Second part really is about process and the strategy for 26-27, because we're now moving into the second half of the current financial year. So it'd be useful just to have an outline, I guess, of the process you go through in order to set the strategy for 26-27.
Okay. Well, we carry out sort of continuous monitoring. One thing we have implemented is the new FP&A system. So we have live cash flow forecasting, so investment and borrowing dashboards. So we're looking at that. We have a monthly Treasury Risk and Investment Board meeting where officers report into the strategic director, updating on various things like counterparty limits, our view on interest rates, where it's going. And one of those decisions we took recently was around investing with local authorities and being able to invest for longer periods, because we're looking at the possibility of interest rates falling. So one of the things we did was, as Emma alluded to or explained, is as part of that meeting, we made that decision. Other things is we're looking at the cash flow, we're looking at what we're going to do next year, any changes we want to make to counterparty limits, counterparty durations. Also, even looking at reviewing, one of the things we're reviewing currently is our MRP policy. Again, for the purposes of the rest of the team, our MRP is the minimum revenue provision. It's the way that revenue is charged for capital expenditure and to bring down our debt over time. And one of the things we want to make sure is that that policy is prudent and affordable and fair across generations. So if we're borrowing for a very long period of time, we want to make sure that over time we're paying as we're using those assets. So those kind of decisions are taking, and we start to look at what we're going to do for next year. And if there's any urgent changes that need to be made, we will take that to full council, because full council are the body that will agree the strategy within which the Director of Finance operates. So that process has already started, and it's an ongoing process.
Thank you, Bridget. Any further questions?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Any questions from anybody else in the committee? No, thank you. Okay, can I ask the committee to note the Treasury management activities and performance against targets for the period 30th of June?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask the committee to note the council's investment balance of 439.621 million as at 30th of June?
Noted.
Thank you. Okay, that moves us on to, thank you, Bridget. That moves us on to item 7, which is the external audit progress report. That'll be Emma. Oh, I beg your pardon, Suresh.
Thank you, Chair. Just a short progress report from us. Last meeting, we obviously informed you that we'd commenced the audit. August is always a bit of a fallow month, so September has been the month where we've really started to make progress. We've included a kind of long list of all the items that we kind of audit and give you an indication of how responsive the council has been, which it has been very responsive in terms of our requests for information and the sample request that we made. So we're on track to get that audit work completed in order to then report to the committee in February the completed part of the audit. In terms of rebuild and assurance, we've completed our initial kind of risk assessment process. As I mentioned at the last committee, there's complexities around the number of years disclaimed audits, which has meant that we've had to request quite a lot of information from the council on the 3 years that were disclaimed. Essentially, we're trying to do a reconciliation of all the movement and reserves over those 3 years to help us determine whether what then further work we need to do. Again, the council has been very responsive and has confirmed that it will be able to provide us that information in due course to allow us to do that. So hopefully that will give us a good indication of the level of work we need to do within this 24-25 year. Value for money, just repeat what we said last time, and we're still on track to report to you in November on completion of work on that. And then the final short slide I've included in the progress report is, and I'm not sure if your previous auditors used to do this, but it's the annual inspection report that the Financial Reporting Council carry out on us as a firm. The aim is to give you assurance that whilst we tell you we do good quality work, the Financial Reporting Council is the ultimate arbiter on that, and they're the ones who actually regulate what we do. So we had a good performance in the last year of inspection, reflecting all the investment that we've made in audit quality. So we thought that would be useful for you to see. I'll stop there though, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Suresh. Are there, Sandeep?
Hi, Suresh. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so just a page, on your PowerPoint presentation, slide 4, which talks to audit progress. There's a reference to a sample of 36. A sample of 36 what? But also what was the population that 36 was taken from, and how was that sample selected?
So that's in relation to management override. Is that correct? On slide.
Yeah, I think that's
yeah,
correct.
slide, yeah, slide. Yeah. So management override of controls. The work we do there is around journals testing, where we essentially establish some risk factors that we consider are journals that would have a higher indication of management override, and we apply those risk factors to the population of all the journals that you've put through for 24-25. Those risk factors through around 36 journals that met our fraud risk factors. So that's the 36. And then what we're saying is we've got follow-up queries on 30 of those, which is not unusual that you get an initial response and you've got further queries.
Sure. It's just helpful to know the population of that's 36 exists from. Is it 1,000? 20,000?
I just might know the answer, but it is, yeah, hundreds of thousands of journals that you would have posted.
Okay. Yeah, but I guess also it's useful to know the value of the 36 compared to the total value of journals as well. So we'll provide that level of detail in our completion report, and we actually put in a number of charts to show the value and the volume of testing that we carry out. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Are there any other questions from the committee? No? Great. Thank you. Can I ask the committee to note the report and the appendix on the Forvis Mazars audit progress for 24-25?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that moves us on to item 8, which is the Q1 internal audit and investigation update report. Mike.
Thank you, Chair. So it's our usual update report. Obviously, it's Q1 position, and we set a deliberately lower target as we transition increasingly from external provision to in-source. We're still recruiting. We did manage to fill most of our posts last year, but unfortunately lost one, so I had to recruit again. But we're quite comfortable. We're in line with actually ahead of the target we set for this point, and are reasonably confident we can deliver. We still have the option to pull in additional resources from our resilience contract if we need to. Highlighting the one report, housing complaints, which received a limited assurance opinion. Also bringing to attention of members the follow-up position. There are 7 outstanding recommendations. 9 outstanding recommendations. A couple which are very close, and we just need to do some testing to confirm with management they're in place. Each are progressing and have quite generous deadlines. Obviously, they've exceeded probably the agreed implementation dates, and some are quite a long way. We've previously had individuals come in and talk to some of those, and still not quite there. And the chair and I discussed whether bringing housing in and voids and TA again was the right thing, or whether we might want to see if they achieve ahead of the next committee, and ask them to attend at that point if they've still not progressed. Moving on to the fraud position, there's the regular update on where we're doing. 176k savings for the year to date, and work continues on areas like the National Fraud Initiative, and some good and encouraging results from the team. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions? Councillor Hirsch.
Sorry, forgive me if the question is not the right question to ask here, but I'm looking at the report on page 7, I thought it was, on conclusion. Yeah, with me on that, but that's the kind of 7 got here. Okay, so maybe I'm in the wrong report, but I'm in the progress report. Yeah, no. Yes, it is paragraph 5. page 7. Yeah, so there's the conclusions, these 2 points about housing and kind of access, basically. I mean, as councillors, we very often hear missing kind of ability to easily access via telephone or emails or website. Are you with me on this, on that page? Yeah, page 7. Yeah, okay, fine. So just checking. So are there any kind of plans in place to actually mitigate that?
So in essence, that's what we found in our report and our work through our work. We then discuss those findings with management, agree kind of management actions or recommendations to address that, and then the time frame in order to do that. So in essence, through that report and that work, the management have agreed an action plan to address that by April 2026 or earlier, and we will bring back to this committee kind of updates against those actions.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Can you hear me? Yes. Just to say, there's quite a few pages have not started for 2256. Is that because you haven't got the staff, or you will start them at some stage?
So we're on target as to where we wanted to be. We don't. So in the old days when we had an external provider, we could call them. They might have 10 people on site on the same day. We've got a team of people who will deliver on a kind of rolling basis. So we start, finish one, start next one. So it's slightly different progress, but it's there and kind of in train with where we want to be, and we're fairly confident that we've got the resources and the ability to deliver the rest, or the resilience to bring in. So that just kind of reflects. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Martin.
Can I just ask about voids, because it's been on your list for a while, and it keeps getting batted a little bit down the road, and the explanation is just due to delays. I just wondered, are they getting anywhere? And when might we see some progress on that? And just one other, which was I think the temporary accommodation health and safety checks. I know when they came and saw us a couple of meetings ago, they were telling us that sometimes the problems are that tenants maybe not available, won't let them in. You know, there's stuff that's obviously beyond their possibly beyond their control. I'm just wondering if you can let us know, is that what the delays still are, or are there other reasons why that's still not complete?
So in both cases, we have basically set out there is a risk, the risk needs to be managed, and we've agreed an action as to what's required to address that. We agree with them a time frame. We don't dictate if we think they've got to, if they're going to take too long or too quickly. We will challenge it, and we ultimately agree what we consider to be a reasonable time frame to address those things. We then go up and follow it up and independently assess whether they've done what they agreed to do. Sometimes they go, you know, we haven't. Sometimes they'll tell us they've done stuff and we'll test it and it's not been done. I push them to try and ensure that these things are addressed on a time frame. We regularly discuss these at SLT. SLT take it very, very seriously and actually hold each other to account to get their actions done. But unfortunately, sometimes resources or complications can crop up, which leads to them not being done. I think on these, the committee did get assurances that they would deliver to the revised timeframes, and obviously they haven't managed to achieve those. Like I say, the chair and I did discuss whether we call them in again, and we said, you know, if you call people in too often, it might become less effective, but actually it might be worth saying, let's see how they're doing. They've got some revised dates. Let's see how they're progressing. If they haven't done that, then absolutely come along to the next meeting and you can ask them why they're not addressing and what the delays are. I can only kind of speak to the point that they haven't been done in line with the expectations, and those were agreed timeframes.
Thanks, Mike. If I could just reassure the committee that we will have them in at the next meeting if this is a pressing issue, and we're all clearly very concerned. If they continue to fall behind, then we will have them at the next meeting and you can ask all your questions directly to them. Great, thank you. Alan, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on a specific point, page 54, the deferral of the audit on the digital programme. I think, I mean, you may partly alluded to the reasons for this, but can you fill in a little bit of the detail of the reason behind that deferral, and you know, assurance that it will take place in 26-27?
So basically the digital programme, so when we set out, so there was due to be a revision to it. That revision's been delayed due to a turnover of the then director of ICT. There's a recruitment of a new director of ICT and digital, or assistant director of ICT and digital. And kind of discussing with management, we could have done something, but obviously that individual is going to come in, have a different take different view, and so it probably would have meant we'd give assurances or otherwise, and it might all change. So it seemed more sensible and more beneficial to the council to kind of let that individual come in, set a new programme and strategy, and kind of review that one or work with them to kind of challenge that setting, than kind of look at something that needed a refresh anyway.
Okay, so not a resource issue with the internal audit team. It's on the other side of the table. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Great, thank you. In that case, can I ask the committee to note the report?
Noted.
Thank you. Okay, that moves us on to item 9, the annual review of whistleblowing, and that's Mike again.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a new report for Audit Committee. It previously went to standards. It's largely a case of the previous monitoring officer left, a new one started, and we met up and had a conversation about where it best sits. Most of the cases we were recording on our system, she was reporting and she was asking us for updates on. So it kind of felt like then the ownership naturally came to me, and as I report to Audit Committee, it would sensibly be that's kind of the natural place for us to report to. So it's just a kind of the typical cases. I was always involved in the setting of the whistleblowing policy, and we both continue to be named as the reporting officers. So people can make a report to either us, or they can make it to a confidential hotline. And then we record the case. We don't necessarily investigate cases. So if it was related to members, it may go back to the monitoring officer who would undertake that. If it related to a service, we may ask the service to do that if they were sufficiently independent and removed from the issue themselves. If it was fraud or something that might be audit related, we would then pick it up from my team, and if it was an HR related issue, the HR team may take it up. So we kind of look at each case as they come in and talk to the relevant officers and allocate those. Then my team tracks that until it's done, and then we record the completion. And because we were doing the kind of admin and stuff around it, it just seemed like a sensible place for that to sit. During the year, we've had 8 cases referred to as whistleblowing. As you see, a lot of those didn't require any further action. They were considered as individual issues, but we would look into those, try and understand what the issues are. If they meet the requirements of the policy, we would do at least some initial investigation work and then assess whether it was something we needed to do more work on. And we see each one of those through until fruition. Whistleblowers will receive an update of their case, but we obviously, as it's quite often complaining about somebody else, they don't get an update because that breach all sorts of data protection issues. But they would say they would either get a confirmation that it was closed, and they might get some confirmation of actions taken or outcomes, but not a great deal of detail if that was the case. Any questions on that report?
Any questions, Sandy?
Thank you, Chair. Mike, do you think the numbers are too low in terms of whistleblowing? I mean, how is it compared to other councils if you benchmark whistleblowing? Have you looked into that?
A few years back, I saw a presentation by the whistleblowing charity, I think they were called Public Concern at Work, and they talked about 2 or 3 referrals being normal. I have another foot in another camp at local authority. We've had more than they did. They also benchmark through having an external list and had an expectation of about 8 for the size of that organisation. I had an increase this year. I think we've had years where we've had none in the past. It's something that we continue to kind of publicise and promote. I would say that 8 was, I don't know what good looks like. It's painful to get 8 to have to deal with, but equally it kind of shows that people are aware of it and happy to utilise it. So I think that's kind of as good an indicator as you can get that we're doing enough to ensure people are aware of it, and probably just things like the transition of ownership meant that we just refreshed the policy and relaunched it, and we try and do that every couple of years. So as I say, I think that's probably just led to a slight spike, but you know, I don't think it's atypical of organisations of this size and nature.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know if whistleblowing has now replaced the complaints procedure, or because a lot of some of the list I could imagine going into a different type of complaint process. So is this covering all our complaints, or is there another whole sort of stream of complaints going off somewhere else?
This is a very specific policy. It's designed to protect individuals so that if they make a complaint about something in the organisation, we don't just dismiss them and sack them to keep them quiet. So it doesn't replace the grievance process, the individual personal complaints process, and those kind of HR processes. Those are there. Unfortunately, some people utilise it because they've gone through that process and they try and see this as which is why a number of these haven't actually progressed any further. It's like we would go back to HR, check what that is, and we wouldn't just go to the individual and go, did you do a disciplinary? We would go, like, for example, to the director of HR, who would have a look at it and make sure that that process had been followed and confirmed before we kind of took that any further.
Thank you, Mike. Alan.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, on the question of numbers, following up on Mike's answer, my experience is that this is not off the scale number. It's probably, you could almost describe it as a healthy number. If you were only getting 1 or 2, then that might suggest a lack of faith in the process or lack of trust, or people just not knowing that they can blow the whistle. So it's good to see a few coming through, but I'm aware of other places where they get dozens because it's become part of the office politics or even big P politics of the place, and that's problematic for obvious reasons. Specific question was, I mean, just to clarify really on the MO's involvement, accepting everything that's said in the report and that you said in your intro, Mike, does the MO get visibility of the whistleblowers as they come in, and including the detail of the cases? It's just a question of whether the MO is in a position to assess the kinds of issues that are coming through.
So it's my policy and my responsibility, but I would share it with the monitoring officer in cases where we need to. It's not unusual for the chief auditor to have responsibility for the process, but obviously there are legal complexities around this, and we would discuss that with them if we had any concerns, but we wouldn't replicate by having both of us necessarily look at every complaint, but obviously we have regular conversations about those, and also with the other statutory officers about any cases that they have an awareness, but wouldn't necessarily replicate the kind of full review and assessment of those.
Thank you. Any further questions? No. Thank you. Can I ask the committee to note the report?
Noted.
Thank you. Okay, that moves us to item 10, which is the Q1 risk management update, and that's Mike again.
It's the Mike show now, isn't it? Sorry, I'll try and keep you all awake. I'll say something exciting in a minute. No, I won't. Just kind of largely to highlight the update since the previous report, there have been 3 changes. The financial resilience risk, which reduced. There's been a recent consultation that brought a little bit more certainty, although no less challenges, I think, which just meant that you could actually look at the risk and consider that. And I think, again, SLT discussed and challenged each other to say, was financial one of our highest risks, or were others our highest risk? So that kind of helped to kind of say, actually, do we need to revisit this and picture all of them together? That also led to the housing regulator compliance risks. So previously this was one risk which was kind of looking at both the resident harm and risk of around the regulation and inspection, and I think that the challenge was that actually it made sense to have those individually set out. I've included that essentially that was an increased risk because it was taking one risk, but the overall risk increased, and I didn't want to just say this was a complete revision because it had similarities. It made complete sense in terms of splitting those out and splitting out those actions and making sure that those things are dealt with, and probably as we get the outcome of the regulation, it will make even more sense in terms of how being able to update that risk, but still importantly ensuring that we're protecting residents' needs and safety in there and continuing on those actions. So essentially that's those 2 risks were updated but separated. Other kind of less material changes and updates to mitigations and dates were made, but that's the key changes to the risk registers to highlight. Any questions?
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions? Councillor Hirsch.
maybe an observation or so, but I was quite, when I looked at the heat map on page, now I know the page is 81, you know, it's there's a lot of red and yellow in terms of the risk register. Is that how the landscape normally looks? Is that at the moment unusual? Because you think, okay, there's the majority of the dots are in the red fields. Yeah, so is that something unusual? Is that normal? Where are we?
So this is very much the strategic risk register. So it considers the highest stuff. When we go around and talk to the leadership team, we kind of say, what's the stuff that's keeping you awake at night? What's the stuff you're worried about? To try and inform those kind of things. And you know, it's important to say these are the kind of unmitigated positions. So if we did nothing, this is what impact it could have on the organisation. But that kind of reiterates the importance of doing something to try and bring those risks down to a more tolerable level. So as a point in time, you shouldn't be concerned if those continue to stay in those areas over a longer period of time, or actions aren't happening and dates are being passed. That should be kind of more of a concern to you. I think probably the other important thing to say is risk management used in commercial organisations, they might look at some of these things and go, actually, we're going to stop doing that because the risk of doing it's too high, and we're not getting enough profit out of it. Whereas in the local authority sector, we have statutory functions that we have to deliver. So there is a massive risk, and we just have to try and mitigate that down as low as we possibly can.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, this one. I know you look after other authorities as well. I'm not asking you to name them, but how do we compare with them?
It's very hard to do a direct comparison on risk management. What we do and what we did when we kind of relaunched this with a new SLT was benchmark to kind of go, these are the type of risks that other local authorities are encountering. But so for example, the financial risk, we're in a better position than a number of local authorities. So we're in a lower risk in that, but it's not. It doesn't mean we're any better. It's different. It can be different circumstances. Obviously, Emily's a lot better. But in all seriousness, it's very difficult to do a direct comparison, but we try and do a benchmark of the kind of areas and aspects that people are there. So when we're considering our risk, we look at them. I mean, there's local authorities that don't even have a housing function, so you'd expect they'd have less risk. So direct comparison is difficult, but taking a group of authorities and looking at those, and that helps us identify emerging risks and those kind of things to make sure that we're either doing stuff and managing them, or that we've got an awareness to them. So it's hard to do an accurate direct comparison, but I would say we're realistically comparable to our kind of neighbours and stuff.
Thank you. Any further questions? Sandeep.
Thank you, Chair. Have we looked at potentially, and I think Alan, we may have touched upon this when we first arrived here, is having the risk owners come on a cyclical basis just to talk about their risks, so it crystallises a bit more for everyone, rather than a piece of paper and colours. So a suggestion for the future.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic suggestion, and definitely one that we can consider. Yeah, thank you. Sure, Councillor Martin.
Not so much a question as such, but I was just thinking about the link between the work that you've been talking about previously and then some of the items on the risk register, especially the ones about the sort of housing and the current state of some of our own council housing, and how those two interconnect, if they do at all, and if that risk register feeds into some of the work you're doing on the audit.
So The risk register is owned by SLT, and it's their documents, their risks, and their risks to manage, and kind of the mantra: management are responsible for good control, risk management, prevention, fraud. Not me. My role is to go out and get assurance that they are doing these things and managing these things. So, in terms of the audit plan, what I do each year is I look at the key areas of potential risk. So I almost start with a risk register. I go out, talk to management about kind of their concerns. Again, what's keeping them awake at night at the moment? Changes in legislation, big contracts, those kind of factors that might bring a new risk, or might, it's not there yet, but as the year goes through, there's new legislation. So like procurement, there was a new act coming in. So we develop a plan to look at the assurances through the audit side of these risks, emerging risks, and then stuff that might not be seen as a risk, but if the mitigations that should be there aren't there, becomes a risk. So we kind of look at all those elements and say, right, we're going to draw up a plan and try and take the key risks. So essentially, this is a big part of the start of the process, and we try and draw that to make sure that they're looking at these mitigations are moving on in that same way, and that they're doing essentially what they're telling us they're doing, and that their teams are getting it right, etc. So it kind of comes from this and then reports back into it, and if they get assurances that things are working in the way, it might help bring down the overall risk. So it's kind of a circular process to get that kind of assurance on how risks are being managed.
Thank you, Mike. Any further questions? Okay, can I ask the committee to note the report?
Noted.
And can I ask the committee to note the progress on the strategic risk register and the heat map and the key risks identified? Thank you.
If there were particular risks that it would be helpful for the committee to do the deeper dives on, do let us know, and then we can talk to that officer about
Yeah, I mean, I think at present the committee can agree that it's risk 7 and 8 that are in the wrong direction of travel, essentially. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, that brings us to item 11, which is the Audit Committee and report to Council. And this is Mike again.
Well, it's kind of you, Chair.
I'm almost surprised. Thanks, Mike.
I did the donkey work for you. Essentially, we introduced an annual report to Council on the Audit Committee, and then last year, because you were brand new in and hadn't really been here, we said we better pause it, really, hadn't we? And did, but brought it back this year. I undertook a review of how the committee sits against the SIP for standards with yourself, and ran through that, and essentially built on the previous one, which largely had two big gaps. One, that we didn't report to the audit committee, to council, and at that point we'd actually not got any independent members. So we've kind of gradually introduced all the good practice, and we're largely there with a couple of gaps which are easily fillable. One is this report goes back to council, and the other is just about having a session with just audit and committee members, which is seen as good practice. We were intending to do that for this meeting, but because of the progress of the external audit, I needed to liaise with them and suggest that actually it's probably more appropriate that they're further through. So we'll have that probably at the next meeting, but I'll confirm with Mazars the best time. That not withholding the fact that if you ever do want a meeting as committee with auditors, we've always extended that offer that you can have a private meeting, and we regularly catch up on kind of the internal audit stuff, and if you had any concerns, I'm sure you would have extended that to the rest of the committee. So it's not that we're horrendously not meeting it, it's just taking it to that next level. So and confirming a high level of compliance. As part of the best practice, CIPFA also set out a number of areas of kind of what the kind of overall impact and stuff that you're going to achieve, how you might give examples of how you might achieve that, and then key indicators. And we've tried to set out through the kind of conversations we had and review of minutes and our general knowledge of the meeting, how you kind of meet those. It's really just kind of presenting that to yourselves. This is your report. Are you happy with what we've written? Obviously, we can incorporate any changes that you might have, and if you've got any comments or changes to the report, and then the chair will take it to council and kind of report on the performance as a committee as a whole.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any comments or questions on the report? Alan, thank you.
Yeah, and just to say, I've got Appendix A open on my phone. I'm not checking the football scores or anything. I think just the one which is page 87, second bullet point. Presumably we need to delete the second sentence there before it goes to council, because that will be out of date.
Yeah, that's just in relation
to
the
best practices intended for a short session ahead of the September 25 meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? No. Okay. Can I ask the committee to note the report? Thank you. Okay. That brings us to item 12, which is the draft indicative work plan. Mike again.
Thanks, Chair. This really is the most exciting paper of the evening. So it sets out the reports that you can expect to receive during 2025-26. I've got the right year, haven't I? And we do it as a kind of rolling plan. So there's always 2 Septembers in there, and obviously just gives you an opportunity to confirm whether there's anything else that you would like to receive or any gaps within that. There will from time to time be additional reports and you know, I think external audit's probably been on every meeting, whereas normally it'd just be a couple of times a year. So it's not set in stone, and additional reports can be received. And you know, if you invite people in to talk about risk, it won't necessarily be reflected on here, but the fact that the risk paper's there and you will be. So it's not set in stone. It's just a kind of indication of the key work of the committee.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Sandy.
Thank you, Chair. It mentioned in the Treasury report that the Audit Committee members received training in the Treasury aspects in 2023. Could we perhaps have something in 2026? It might be helpful.
I have requested the same, and we're in progress of arranging something. So yeah, you'll hear about that in due course. Thank you, Sandeep. Any other questions? Great. Okay. Can I ask the committee to note and agree the work plan? Thank you. That concludes the meeting this evening. Thank you everyone for attending. The next meeting is the 3rd of December, so please pop that in your diary.